Hello, and welcome to LXG headquarters for your promised conversation on what's going on with Privateer Press.
Yeah, I don't even know what we're going to call this segment.
I think that's it. I think it's
First time we've done a conversation segment.
Yeah. So, yeah, we don't really have a title for this kind of piece, but we're hoping to make it more of something that we do on a regular basis.
Yeah, if you guys like this, then maybe we'll do these in the future, especially because I know there are some people that liked painting to our droning commentary.
And we've shortening our,
so.
especially when we split the two shows, so this gives you some more opportunity to listen to us while you paint, which, I'm not even going to comment on your psyche if you're listening to us while you paint.
Or, use us as a droning conversation in the background to sleep, or whatever.
Wow, I don't really want to, people sleep to our voices?
It's possible. Actually, I was reading this thing recently where, it's one of the reasons why the Bob Ross YouTube channel has become so popular.
Because people listen to his happy little trees as they fall asleep? Okay.
Because anything that maintains an even pitch of conversation is, by definition, droning.
Okay.
Thus, can be used for relaxation and sleep. Also, any sounds that are excessively familiar can be used for relaxation and sleep. So.
Okay, I guess that makes sense. It would drive me absolutely bonkers if I tried to sleep to it, but I got you.
Believe it or not, there's a YouTube series that Token Gamer Chick uses for sleep a lot.
Okay, and it's like a conversation piece?
It's this one person that speaks in a very flat affect about any number of different topics.
But that one tone just kind of
Exactly.
Okay, fair enough. Well, there you go. So if you listen to us while you sleep, here's some more of us to listen to.
If you listen to us while you paint, here's some more of us. If you sleep while you paint, you have issues.
I'd like to see some of those paint jobs. I'm just saying.
Actually, you wish you could manage that skill.
Right? If I could paint while I slept, I'd be brilliant. All right. But anyway, we wanted to talk about Privateer Press. A couple weeks ago, they made an announcement that they were going to try to enforce some new policies, primarily on distributors who sold to people who sold on the web but didn't really have a store to back it up.
Exactly. Or people that even still had a brick and mortar store, but the majority of their sales came from
web sales.
What are referred to as free siting, which is the really cheap online stores where you already have a bit of a warehouse because you have a brick and mortar store.
Right.
So you're using your brick and mortar store as a distribution center for your web store.
And I mean, in conjunction with that, we don't know that this is necessarily going to be affecting guys who just have stores who are selling at about the same price they would sell in their store. This is primarily targeting people who are severely undercutting the brick and mortar market.
Right.
Because this is a program designed to help brick and mortar stores. I mean, as much as I'm sure there are some people out there who like buying online because of various reasons, and one of them is usually cost. Let's not be.
Absolutely.
They're probably decrying a decision like this because they're like, I don't want to have to buy my warm words at market price.
Right.
So, we're going to talk a little bit.
Let's just say, even when things are priced appropriately, you will always have a cross-section of the market that always wants them cheaper.
Absolutely.
Even when things are priced inappropriately, you will always have a cross-market that wants them cheaper. Yeah,
there's always going to be a part of your market that wants it cheaper. We get that.
Right.
And honestly, we're not even saying that there's not a healthy place for a discount online. We're just kind of addressing the people who really make it almost impossible for brick and mortars to compete.
Right.
And that's what Privateer Press seems to be addressing as well.
Yeah.
So, for those of you who don't know exactly what their policy is going to be, I'm just going to review it real quick, and then we're going to talk about what we think about it,
and where we think they're going to go.
And there's some actual breaking news since we had first talked about this that we're going to also mention as well that we think plays into this.
That's why we were waiting.
Yes. We knew there was breaking news coming that no one knew about. No, we didn't. But anyway. So basically, the way it's going to work is if a distributor sells to one of these bad stores, websites that we'll just call them like that, they will have their shipments delayed over distributors who don't sell to those type of stores, and thus impacting that distributor's ability to compete in the marketplace, selling Privateer Press products, thus making it harder for that company, and that punishment hopefully being enough to stop them from selling to these bad websites. So that policy is pretty much, as I come from, my background in business comes from a different industry, is not too...
You discuss it.
Yeah, well, I mean...
It's not like it's a
Well, all right, so yeah, I come from my family. My whole family's owned hair salons. We've actually been in the distribution business for some major companies. I have a close friend who owns a major distributorship for Redken and other products here in Pennsylvania. So I'm kind of familiar with how this works. I mean, and in that industry, yeah, the producer, the Redken in this case, for example, would punish distributors all the time for breaking rules, primarily by selling to places that aren't hair salons. Yeah, granted, if Redken really wanted to not show up in, Rite Aid, they could do more to enforce it, but at least they can have a sense of accountability of like, well, this guy's the guy who's selling it to him, so I have a way of, and they have ways of tracking it.
Right.
And this is what we were, in our conversations, I would have been, like, to me, it was like, oh, well, they can track that kind of stuff. And he's like, no, none of the major manufacturers in the gaming industry do any of the things that, like, major companies like Redken and L'Oreal and things like that do to track who's selling what to whom.
Separate trackable ISDN numbers, separate trackable SKUs, lot numbers.
Literally, numbers on like, literally imprinted into the packaging so you can't alter it. I mean... These are just things I thought, well, yeah, that can happen. I know that not every company does it. Not every company in the hair industry does it either. But I was surprised to find out that like no one does it. Not even like other gaming companies. So that being said, I'm not surprised at this level because the idea is, to tie back into gaming. If the brick and mortar stores don't exist, especially in countries like America, where we don't have a huge club atmosphere. I know in England, you literally, you have gaming clubs, you go to your buddy's house, the community seems a lot more tight, close-knit, partly because the country is so much smaller, and I'm not saying anything, but literally...
There is a geographic element to it.
Right, I mean, I have friends in this country who play games that live a 5 to 7 hour plane ride away, not a couple hour drive.
Yeah, to be fair, you took a 6.5 hour plane ride to a location to play people that took a 3 hour plane ride to get there, and you guys never crossed paths.
Right. Yeah, literally, we never were in the same geographic area until we arrived at a location.
Right.
So, I mean,
so it's huge.
America's huge in comparison to some other countries and communities that are out there. So in America, literally, we don't have the club atmosphere that they do in other places. And I mention that because we do have viewers in other countries who probably may not get this. That being said, we rely on brick and mortar stores primarily to meet other people who play the games that we like to play.
Right.
I would not know this man if it weren't for brick and mortar stores.
That's true.
That is absolutely true. I mean, and so that is our club community, is brick and mortar stores. And in America, they're dying.
Yeah. And in fact, the working model right now is trying to combine both aspects. A brick and mortar store sponsored club.
Yeah.
Or a club starting a brick and mortar store.
We know a group in New York who has done that. They basically started as a club. They co-opted a space and they run it as a co-op business for the space and the product that they can get as a store now.
Seems to be working really well for them.
And it does. It's honestly, it's not something I haven't looked at to see if we could do in this area ourselves. But there's a lot that goes into that kind of stuff.
Right.
That being said, brick and mortar stores are still kind of the even though we have these hybrid ideas that are out there, without the brick and mortar store idea, these don't happen.
Correct.
Okay. So, keeping that in mind as we go through this, we think Private Tier Press is doing the right thing in trying to address that brick and mortar stores can't compete.
I can agree with that sentence.
Yes. That there is something that needs to be done in the industry across the whole to keep brick and mortar stores viable. Now, if a brick and mortar store fails on its own merits, that's fine, but when they can't compete, to sell the product that someone else is selling online, that's an unfair reason to not succeed. I mean, brick and mortar stores have a lot more overhead than a just straight website. Literally in a just straight website, I can use my basement in the house that I live in as storage for the things I'm going to sell on my website. Whereas, there are laws around it, but people do it.
And for some distributors, actually for most distributors, you need to be able to demonstrate a storefront.
Right.
However, there are ways to demonstrate a storefront within your house. There are also ways to have a small storefront, but you run the majority of the industry out of your garage because you don't have enough storage space in your storefront.
I mean, and to continue from my previous history, I imagine, and if it doesn't happen, I hope I'm not putting this idea out there to people, but we used to have this thing we call diversion, where distributor sells to you, you're a legitimate store, but I come to you and go, look, let's double your orders. I'll give you 10% over. So this is just straight 10% extra money in your pocket.
Yep.
I'll pay the extra shipping.
Oh,
and you just give me the
happens
location.
all the time.
Right. And now I can store it in my basement because the distributor just thinks that you've become a really good seller.
Yeah. Matter of fact, and it also happens at a whole nother level, because when you do have clubs, a lot of times a club will go to a brick and mortar store.
Right.
I know this happens now because it literally happened 15 years ago when I owned a storefront.
Okay, fair enough.
I had a club that would come to me, and they were a competitive club. I don't want to say any names because it is a little iffy on the legality of it technically. But they were a big club. They went to tournaments. They sponsored their own events. They were one of the few movers in the area that wasn't tied to a specific store.
Okay.
And they had looked into getting deals with distributors to work through them so that they could have more armies, more support, more terrain for their tournaments.
Right.
They couldn't because all the distributors were like, look, if you don't have a storefront, we're not going to sell to you.
Right.
So they came to me and basically were willing to split the difference between the between the distributor's price and the retail price.
Gotcha. So basically, they wanted you to cut your margin in half, but they would buy exclusively from you.
And it literally would be, it was cutting my margin in half, but it was immediate turnaround sales.
Right.
Because they put in an order, I put it in a separate box.
Right.
My shipments usually came in on Monday and Wednesday. They showed up Thursday, took it out. It was out of my hair before the weekend,
right.
So I didn't care.
You never had to store it other than those couple of days. You didn't have to price it. You didn't have to display it.
Yep.
All of the man hours that go in, that no one thinks about, that goes into making sure you can sell your product, you got to cut out, and you got a piece.
I never even inventoried it.
Right.
Literally,
it was just their stuff. You put it in a separate box, done.
Yeah, I took them, I line itemed them out of my invoices and inventoried the rest of my invoices. It never even hit my inventory tracking system.
So there you go. So I'm sure that's happening in a lot of different places because when you're a brick and mortar store, you're looking for every edge, and as the margins keep getting tighter because of what you have to compete with online, I'm sure it's gotten even worse and worse and worse.
Right.
So all that being said together, brick and mortar stores got it rough, guys. I mean, they're not doing it to get rich. They're primarily doing it because they love the industry and love what they're doing there. So now, Privateer Press isn't an altruistic company. I mean, they do things to make money. So why do they care? Why do they care if brick and mortar stores? Why do they care where it sells from? This is very important because, again, America is a very large market. We spend a lot of money on gaming, and I'm not saying that we're the only ones, but I'm going to use ours as the example because that's what I'm most familiar with. If the place where people primarily learn about games and learn to play them and meet the people who they're going to play with happens in brick and mortar stores, it is in Privateer Press's best interest to make sure those locations stay viable.
And that those locations dedicate the shelf space to their product.
So now if I'm Privateer Press and I come to store owner A here and say, look, we're going to do this and this and this to try to protect you from undercutting online. He's now more likely to go, well, I'll give you a whole section of space. Maybe I was only giving you half a section before. Because as a store owner, you're going to make out better if you sell the stuff that's not getting undercut online.
If I'm selling 5 different games and one of them is trying to make sure that people are buying from me rather than online, it is in my best interest to make sure I'm selling that game.
Right. So in twofold, it helps Privateer Press. It keeps their primary new customer or new player base locations viable because people learn about games in stores, and it makes you more likely to push me over the guy next to me because I'm trying to help you out, man.
Exactly.
And he's not, right? So on Privateer Press's end, it makes business sense. It makes sense for the local company. So who honestly is getting hurt here? Primarily the people who are shopping online to get cheaper stuff. More or less.
If it works the way it's
supposed to. That's the intention.
Right.
Now here's why we wanted to have a conversation about it. Because if that was all it is, well, hell, there's no conversation piece here.
Right.
So,
but as always, the devil is in the details,
yes.
and in the words of, the immortal John Green, reality defies simplicity.
Yes. So, in this scenario, I'm going to make you a distributor. Oh no, I'll be a distributor, you'll still be a storefront. Because, we'll keep the analogy the same. So you're a storefront, and, I'm a distributor, and I'm selling to you. Mm-hmm. I'm distributor A, we'll say. Distributor A sells to you, but we also sell to these guys over here that are on the bad list.
Right.
Okay? The guys on the bad list over here, are going to make sure that my shipment gets delayed. Well, you're good. You're not on the bad list.
Right.
But now your shipment is delayed because you're buying from me.
Yes. And the reason I'm buying from you is because since we're talking about these margins that are ridiculously small,
Right.
guys, seriously, the reason why your brick and mortar store can't match the 30% off of some web stores
It would cost them more money to sell it than they're making.
literally at that point, they're making less than 10% of the sticker price.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're making less than 10% of the sticker price, it's honestly not worth the time to sell it.
Yeah, because they're not covering the rent and or the electricity, all the other things that you don't think about when you go into a store.
Right.
That cost money. You live in a house, you pay your electric bill, guess what? So does the guy who's selling your stuff.
Right.
And, that 10% is not enough. So if he were to match, he couldn't do it. Okay?
Exactly. So he can't match the prices. But also remembering that margin is so slim, if distributor A sells to him for 10% less than distributor B or C does, I am more likely to work with distributor A because, sure, it's only getting me an extra 50 or 60 cents per item.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? When we're talking about margins that are only $1 or $2 per item, 50 or 60 cents is a decent percentage of that ridiculously small percentage.
Right. A 50% difference, if I'm only $1 margin, guess what? I've increased my margin by 50%.
50 cents if you've got $1 margin is increasing your margin by... Yeah, you're right. 50%. I'm sorry.
Right. But that's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. To be able to increase your, there's companies out there right now who are trying to figure out how to increase their margin by 2%.
Right.
A 50% increase would be huge. Okay? So, sounds like this guy gets screwed, right? But in the grand scheme of things, if I'm getting delayed, people are going to stop buying from me, so I should change, right? Except no. Now, he's getting this 50% off every package,
right?
And because I'm selling it to him for that much cheaper. Okay, that margin he's getting because I made him sign what's called an exclusivity clause,
right?
Which means he's not allowed to buy the products he's getting this discount from anybody else.
Or another way that the clause is often worked is anything that the distributor sells, you have to get from that distributor or directly from that manufacturer.
Right. So in this case, let's say he buys 3 of the 5 games from me, but only Privateer Press is being delayed because of the new policy. Well, as soon as he buys Privateer Press from someone else, I can pull his other 2 things, and maybe he can't get that from anywhere else.
Right. Or even still, it's just going to be more expensive. It's going to require your local gaming store owners to spend time developing relationships with new distributors, to research new distributors, to determine which ones are going to work best for his or her business model. Mm-hmm. And if there's one thing that a business owner hates doing, it's spending time researching.
Right, because
even though it's always in their best interest,
but
they all hate it.
They all hate it partly because it's time not spent dedicated to the moment-by-moment sales they need to be getting.
Right.
Because again, those margins need to be met.
Yeah.
We need to make a certain amount of money or we don't pay our bills this month.
Right.
And when you're...
That comes down to it's expensive, it's incredibly expensive to be poor mentality.
Right. Yeah.
That since you're not making enough of a margin, you don't have the time available to find out if you can make better margins.
Yeah. Unless I walk into your store and go, yeah, I can make your margin better, you're not going to know that I exist.
Right.
So there's a lot of pitfalls that hurt legitimate, good businesses by Privateer Press's definition of good or bad.
Right.
There's opportunity for you to be hurt. Now, that being said, maybe it's in the best interest for the market not to have distributor A who controls 75% of distributorship in this country.
Yeah, but that's not changing.
But that's not going to
change.
change.
So that's irrelevant. Another thing to look at this is that arguably, with the exception of new releases, distributor A
Probably
isn't going to care.
Yeah.
Because unless it's a brand new product, I don't need it right away if I'm running my distributorship correctly.
Right.
And if I'm a web store that's on this bad list, if I'm free citing, my distributor maintains enough of a stock that I never see the pinch, so there's no reason for me to change my business model that's working for me over my brick and mortar store.
Right. So all of this kind of ties into some new news that came out. In the last
Which now makes so much more of this decision sound viable.
Right, because that's it really. Why is it not? I've got enough. I'm distributor A. I've got a warehouse full of your stuff already.
Right.
So you delay my shipments a couple weeks. I will put that into my cycle of how I order, and now whatever. Except, Privateer Press just announced a new edition of Warlords.
Yes.
Which generally means a few different things. First of which, new packaging.
Because you don't need to do new packaging with a new edition, but it's generally an accepted practice that that's when you do new packaging if you're going to.
And why do we expect new packaging? Because everything we just listed all ties back into packaging.
Yeah.
If it's old stock, and my warehouse has it, you'll know that it's old stock being sold to the website, and all the new stock's going to be delayed, including new books, new models, and all that. It's that all comes with a new edition. So distributor A's best interest is to make sure I have that stuff at launch, or else I'm going to have a slew of stores pissed off at me for not being able to meet that demand.
Not only that, you can also do things with packaging as far as quantity issues.
Yeah.
Because let's say you currently have a blister of infantry.
Sure.
You have you have 3 in your blister.
Sure.
And your blister sells for $10.
Yep.
That's the old blister, 3 for 10.
3 for 10. Got it.
The new blister is 4 for 12.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
About the same price per.
A little bit less, but not.
A little bit less, but not appreciably different.
Right.
However, as a buyer, I am far more interested in buying a larger pack than a smaller pack.
Yeah, and it's discounted enough that 4 for 12, I'm going to go, well, that's cheaper than 3 for 10, and it's more. And I need 8 of them.
Right.
I'm going to buy 2.
Yeah.
I want 2 of those. And that's the other thing. With a new edition, you can literally change your unit sizes to match your new packaging just to make your old packaging irrelevant.
Yes.
And that's a big thing, because people literally will flip crap if you have a unit that's currently that 3 for 10, and you make it a 4-man unit. So now the max unit is 4. Now
or even worse, the 8.
Or the 8, yeah.
Because now I need to buy 3 instead of 2.
Right.
So that's costing me more money, and I can't use one of the ones from the last group.
Right. So it's like that wasted model mentality happens all the time in gaming. People hate when the packaging doesn't match the books and the
And that wasted model, more importantly in this case, perfectly devalues the discount you would get from the free site.
Right.
Because now you're paying the same per used model.
Right. Yeah.
So saving 30% means a lot less when you're wasting 14%
to get there. Yeah, so that's a big one. The other thing is, a lot of the things that other distributor companies, and other industries do is this idea of lot numbers and packaging that has things embedded into the packaging you can't change. Well, none of Warlords or Privateer Press's old packaging has that. Yeah. Now, we're not saying we know that the new packaging is, but if you're going to repackage everything,
if you're going to make an issue about trying to catch distributors, that means you're discussing using lot numbers.
Right, and a new if you're going to have to redo all your packaging anyway, if you're going to just start lot numbers, a new edition where a new packaging scheme makes sense is the perfect time to do it. It kind of makes the timing of this announcement make a lot more sense.
Yes.
Because they knew that this new thing was coming. And also, if I remember correctly, you had reached out to try to get some answers on this.
Yeah.
And the answer was, we have plans in place, and that was about as far as you got.
Yeah, I had actually done a little bit of groundwork when this came out, because I know a couple guys who know a couple guys who occasionally fall off of the truck. So, so I reached out to a couple people that I know, and the conversation was basically, there's more involved in this, and I was told a couple things that I'm not going to go into because reasons. But basically, the gist of it was there was a couple points that they're working on. There's going to be a couple more. There's going to be more to it than what meets the eye on paper with the original announcement.
Right.
And that if distributors or retailers have specific questions, they can contact Privateer Press, and Privateer Press has answers already in place for distributors and retailers that are concerned.
Right.
So, while I wasn't privy to what those answers are, that really does sound like they've got a whole system in line.
Right.
It's not just, empty
words.
Empty words.
Like, it sounded like they had a plan.
Yes.
It wasn't just, we're going to make, because there is something to be said. Let's make lip service to the whole idea of we're going to make it better for brick and mortars,
Right.
but we'll make a toothless policy that can't be enforced.
Right.
And people will say, well, they're doing the right thing by trying, and nothing changes. But it didn't sound like from those answers that you got Privacy Press seems to be taking this seriously and seems to have what they consider a plan in place. Now, while we do agree brick and mortar stores need help, we have yet to see a policy put in place that actually helped.
Yeah.
Yet.
I mean,
not saying Privacy Press hasn't come up with it. We don't know all the details of it yet.
I'm going to give a shout out here to Malifaux. Weird has done a nice job of doing contests and specialty things to try to bring people into brick and mortar stores.
Right. They have packages of prizes that you can only get from brick and mortar store events, that kind of stuff.
And that helps to a certain extent.
Right.
It means that if you have a brick and mortar store and I need to spend $25 to get this limited edition model, and I'm planning on building a whole new force for this tournament season, so I'm spending at least $150. I'm spending 25 of that at you.
Right.
Now, it doesn't mean that the other 125 isn't going to a free site.
Right.
So it helps.
But not
it's a nice gesture, but it doesn't solve the problem.
No.
It gives. I refer to it as keeping honest people honest. It gives me the excuse to buy the rest of it at your store.
Because I'm going.
If I would needed an excuse to not
go online,
buy the undercutted price.
Right. It's like locks on doors.
Exactly.
Locks on doors don't really keep criminals out. They keep honest people out.
Right.
Because people who would, given the opportunity to be dishonest,
know how to get around locks.
Right. So it's that type of policy. And those policies aren't bad. I mean, we're not saying don't have those policies, but just understand that you're really only keeping the people out.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice stopgap. It's an excellent gesture by the company.
And it's better than most.
Can't figure out what else to do.
And it's better than most companies. Some companies just don't make any efforts.
Right.
I mean, so at least they tried. This seems like, and you know, it's not for nothing. Other wargaming companies put policies in place not that long ago to help their own brick and mortar stores.
Right.
I mean, yes, it was their own brick and mortar stores, but they recognized that their brick and mortar stores were losing the same battle.
Right.
So this isn't like this is a foreign idea that the web sales undercut and make brick and mortar stores more and more untenable.
Yeah, and I mean, and again, it's not new. It's the nature of the industry is things can be bought anywhere.
Yep.
And because things can be bought anywhere, there will always be somebody trying to undercut whatever the most recent best undercut is.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, but if you look at online communities like MMORPGs, happens all the time in the game economy, and the game economy falls apart because of it.
Right.
It's the same thing in real life. If somebody's always going to try to find a way to undercut store A over here.
Yep.
You know, I'm going to find a way. You know what? If I sell just 5% less than him, I'll sell more.
And the idea is if I sell even one more than he did, it was worth it to make the sale. If I sell even one more because of the sale,
right,
I break even on the sale, and thus it was worth it because in the long run that might have attracted more customers.
Right. And thus why you have these communities that exist out there. Now, you know, it's a shame. It happens, but it's a shame. We like that somebody's trying to take looks like a pretty decently hard stand at it. We'll see how it plays out. But I think with the change in editions coming, if they change all their packaging, then they were legit.
The announcement that there's a change in editions totally takes the teeth out of most of my arguments against what they had planned. Yeah. Because it was, how can you know that it's new stuff? Well, if everything is now new stuff, you can know.
Yeah.
How can you know it was purchased through a distributor versus this? How can you know it was purchased through a web store versus this? Well, if you have lot numbers, if you have specifically designed packaging, if you have, you know, LGS only materials, now you can tell.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot more to this that is now available now that we are aware that this is what they had intended.
Yep.
When it was just, we're going to protect brick and mortar stores, it was slightly more than lip service.
And also, you know, as I was thinking about this, with the idea of a new edition coming out, you know, this is a time when those web stores would tend to excel.
Yes.
Because, well, I've got to buy a new book for a new edition, probably a new Army book as well. You know, all of these things that cost money. Well, I'll get it from the website because it's cheaper,
Right.
because I have to buy all these things to keep playing my game. Now is also the time to make sure that the brick and mortar stores are protected, so that they reap the benefits of a new edition, and also so that they still continue to carry it after a new edition.
Especially because your brick and mortar stores, if you're doing, and this is why it's really important to do it, is if you do some of those quantity changes that we talked about, those actually really hurt brick and mortar stores.
Sure.
Because if I was barely moving your stock before, I'm now not going to be able to, and I'm stuck with all of this old material
stock, right.
that, trust me, some companies buy it back, but they don't like to, and they don't want to, and even if they offer to, they generally make it difficult to take back all the stock.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to be stuck with hundreds/thousands of dollars of product that I'm not going to be able to move.
Right.
At the same time, you want me to continue. You want me to spend money to buy new stock,
Right.
to replace the
stock that I couldn't sell.
the stock that I can't sell,
Right.
while not doing anything to stop free sites from selling to my customers, who then bring that shit in my store. Because let me tell you something,
That
guys.
also.
Your local gaming store operative,
He's not going to say it to you.
more than likely doesn't say anything, more than likely doesn't even grumble. But I'm telling you, they know who they sell to, they know what all of their customers buy, and they know how much all of their customers buy. When you walk into a local gaming store, and you walk in with 4 $80 models that they know they have never ordered, what they see in front of them is somebody that just cost them money.
Yep.
And is coming in here to play for free, using their facilities. It's like literally a dude walking up and kissing your wife. It's that kind of feeling. Or a very exact analogy, somebody from your gaming club walking into your house, taking food off your table, and leaving.
That's basically what you did.
Because it's like literally what you just did.
This is one of the few times we're actually, I probably get really in your grill if you're one of our fans who does this kind of stuff. You're just hurting everyone in your community by not supporting your community.
Yeah. Now there are times to use free sites, because sometimes you're trying to start a game in the local community and your local gaming store doesn't carry it yet.
And is unwilling to place the order because he doesn't order enough to deal with this new distributor he might have to deal with.
Right. So,
I got you.
Good reason.
Yeah.
Sometimes you are trying to do a revision or a remodel or a alternative army, and it's not the one that you're normally going to play. And sure. Sometimes you need something for a tournament season and you just don't have the cash. I would say there's probably some other evaluations you can do. B, sure, I get it. Sometimes this happens. But, I mean...
The worst case guy is really the guy who comes in with a brand new army.
Oh, the
brand new army.
Whole army, dude.
Like that guy. And
I'm telling you, as an LGS owner, when a dude walks in and goes, "Hi, here's my brand new 2,000 point, Imperial screw you army," like, you really want to kick him in the nuts.
And here's the thing: they are providing a location for you to play your games in most cases, and they ain't charging you for it.
In most cases.
And do you think they live on charity? Like, this is honestly, in the end, do you think they do it for charity? No, they're not doing it for charity. This is how they make their living, is by selling this stock. I'm not saying I've never bought anything off a free site. I have. I'm not saying that I wouldn't go to a website to find something cheaper if for certain things. But I will also tell you this: I have always, when I was a member of a community, purchased from that store. Always. Maybe not everything I bought, but the guy who was behind the counter, and he knows this because he was the guy behind the counter, knows that 70% of what's on the table, I bought in that store.
Yeah, and you don't mind the alternate, you don't mind a little bit, because honestly,
sometimes the deal's just too good to pass up.
Not only that, there is a point at which web stores, or it's called indirect sales. Web stores, eBay, whatever. When used properly, there's a point at which indirect sales actually benefit the LGS.
Right, because here's the thing. I come in with my coolie, this is awesome thing. If I'm a respectable member of my community, someone comes up to me and says, "That's awesome." Well, yeah, go talk to him. He's got them. That too.
It's not only that.
Mhm.
A lot of times things will be bundled. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So let's say there's a blister for a specific character that you want to use.
Okay.
All right. I can't order them unless I order a minimum of 6.
Okay.
Because they're bundled.
Gotcha.
All right. It's a $15 model.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to cost me $7 to put it on the shelf.
Got it. Okay.
As an LGS, and again, your LGS owners will never say this, if it's a $7 purchase, they're in a bundle of 4. Because
so
bundles of 4 are more reasonable.
It costs you $28 to sell the 115.
Yeah. I am $13 in the hole, which means I'm not making money until I've sold 3 of the 4.
Right. And look, we're not saying that everything's like this, but there are going to be times where your LGS is going to be like, thankfully I didn't have to buy that.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that I would have sold the other 3.
Right.
And
because one guy asking for one model, I'm not going to sell it yet. Now, if that guy comes in and that model works and it's painted well and he starts winning games and people are like, where can you get that? Now, if I can place an order for 2 or 3,
I'm more likely to sell enough to make money on it.
I'll put the extra one on the shelf for 6 months, a year, until the next edition of the game. I don't mind, but
because I made my money already on what I needed here.
Because the flip side is as the LGS owner, if somebody comes to you and asks for you to order something that's going to cost you money, you need to do it. Because you don't turn down a request for a special order, or that guy never comes to you again.
Yeah. And so sometimes that special order, you go to store A and say, dude, can you get me this, this awesome pig model? And you go, yeah, knowing you're going to have to buy 3, and I'm the first person to ask for one in 4 months.
Yep.
But you do it because you want me to come to you when I can, dude, that model is $80. Can you get me one of those? That's why you buy me the pig.
Right, so that in the end you hopefully break even.
Yeah. And
there's a lot of break-even mentality that goes into running a game store.
And that's the thing. Running a game store, part of their job is build that community. The reason we rail on the guy who's coming in with all stuff that he didn't buy in that store into that community is because part of his job is building the community that I can come into and play my game. And when you're not supporting him doing that, and he'll do a lot of things that aren't in necessarily his best interest today, because he's hoping that by building that community he makes his mark down here.
Right. A long view.
A long view. And you have to have a long view when you're a store owner or else you'll never survive. You'll drive yourself batty. But that long view sometimes, that's why this guy really gets under our skin. Because he undermines the long view and makes my store owner, who does things in my favor more often than he will ever admit.
Even to his own detriment.
To his own detriment, because as a member of the community, it's in my best interest and thus hopefully his in the long run. The guy who comes in who's not bought anything from the community he plays in, that guy makes this store owner not want to help me.
Yeah.
So if you know a guy who does this, you need to get in his ear about that.
Yeah.
Because he's part of the problem. The reason these free sites all are becoming such a big problem.
They don't sell to a vacuum.
They don't sell to a vacuum is that every one of us has bought from them at some point. It's the guy who's buying to them at exclusion. That's the guy who's the problem.
All right. And the other thing, too, is that people, a lot of times people don't look at just how little a dollar amount they're saving to undercut their own community.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a little bit tangential from the conversation, but it's not, because it's the purpose.
That's the reason of the conversation. Right.
You're going to build, let's use Malifaux as a perfect example.
Got it.
All right? You're getting ready to build a list for upcoming Malifaux tournament.
All right.
What faction you going to play?
I'm gonna run Terra. So I'm gonna run Outcasts.
You're gonna run Outcasts.
Yeah.
So probably 2 or 3 starter boxes.
Sure.
Some outliers.
Okay.
How much money are you looking at total?
Oh, so the star boxes run you about $50 each. So it's 150. The outliers are probably gonna run me about 25 each. So let's say 220. Excuse me. Did the math wrong? Yeah, let's say 225.
225.
Yeah. So 3 outlying boxes and 3 starter boxes.
Okay.
All right.
225 at your local store.
Mm-hmm.
If you order from a free site, you're going to get probably 30% off.
Okay, so 30% off of 225 is saving about
$70.
So I'm down to 180.
Okay. For $70, you just undercut your own community.
Yep.
That's $70 not going towards a new tournament.
Yep.
$70 not going towards new tables in your store.
Yep.
$70 not going towards, well, should we expand and buy the storefront right next to us that is now open and triple our table space or not?
I'm going to pause that right there because you and I saw it happen.
Yep.
There's a gaming community, a gaming store that was in our relative community. It's a little bit extended from us, but it was actually closer to me when I lived in Jersey.
Right.
Jester's Playhouse. Those of you who are in the East Coast have heard of Jester's Playhouse because
they were around for
forever.
decades.
Closed last year, was it closed? Closed
Yep.
last year. We know that 3 years prior to that, he was debating expanding his store space.
Yep.
Because the store space...
For a second time.
For a second time. He already had one storefront. He had bought the one next to it. He wanted to buy the one next to that one as well. And when I say buy, I mean rent. But he was going to lease that third space because he was trying to build a larger community. In the span of 3 years, he's closed. There's only one reason. He couldn't compete anymore.
Yep. And it wasn't because people weren't coming in to play.
Yeah, people were coming
in
in
to play. It wasn't because he wasn't running tournaments. Yeah. And it wasn't because he wasn't running 12 table tournaments that were always packed.
Yeah.
16, 24 table tournaments.
Absolutely. He was running full on, in other wargaming companies, he was grand tournament.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he was running, but he couldn't compete.
Same thing happened to Drop Zone as well.
Yeah.
You know, they literally, in the span of a year, went from, we're thinking about taking our, you know, right now we have a store in Maryland. We're pretty sure we're looking at 2 or 3 different locations to put one in Delaware, and if that one does okay for 6 months, we'll probably put one in southern Pennsylvania.
Yep. Trust us, we were looking forward to this.
we were scouting sites.
We were.
And literally turned from we're looking to expand and add entirely new stores to closed because they couldn't get enough market, and it wasn't because they weren't known people, and it wasn't because they didn't have a good reputation, and it wasn't because they weren't packed every weekend.
And they were. It was because the margins, their own communities were killing them.
Yeah.
Because, look, you know, that $70, and yeah, $70 is a lot of money. We're not saying it's not, because we both could use more, $70 more in our wallets right now. But that $70 is the difference between having a place to play and not.
Yeah.
And wouldn't you pay? Because let's say, how often do you buy a whole brand new army? Honestly, once a quarter if you're lucky.
If that.
Okay.
Most people probably once a year.
All right. Let's say so once a year. Once a year. I'll even double it and say twice a year. You're gonna spend $70 extra twice a year. Are you telling me that your gaming community isn't worth $140 a year?
Not worth $10 a month.
$10 a month. If I told you right now you could have a gaming space you could play in pretty much at will for $10 a month, most of you would go, "Oh yeah, I'll do that."
Yep.
Without even batting an eye. That's what it's costing you to not have gaming stores, and that's why Privateer Press is doing this. Because they recognize that we need these locations too. So they're trying to make it so that we can't be dumb and spite ourselves. But it's $10 a month. That's what you're saving yourself.
Is it worth $10 a month to have places to play, new people to play with, you know, places to go, you know, to get away from the housewife, kids, girlfriend, whatever, and discuss things with other gamers in a relaxed environment?
Yeah. Is it worth $10 a month to have somebody who's going to put organized play together for you?
Yeah. Not only that, like literally, if you have a tournaments at a storefront, I'm telling you, as long as you still have a local gaming store, your tournaments are cheaper.
Yeah.
Because I don't need to rent special space.
Yep.
Once I need to rent special space, it's $25, $30, $50 a head. When I'm doing tournaments at a store, it's $5, $10, $15 a head if charged at all.
Because we know this, because we've done the math.
We've done them both.
We've done both, and we want to continue. We're looking at spaces, and it's like it'd be so much easier if we had a storefront to run these things at, but we don't. So there's just a lot of ancillaries that go into why should I buy in a storefront and why shouldn't I, which is ultimately the core of what Privateer Press is trying to do here.
Exactly.
Is why. What can we do to make sure that the value in the stores is enough to make sure that we're not killing them off? And that's what we're doing. As a community, especially in America, we are killing off our local gaming stores.
Yep.
So
the problem is that I don't know that, and again, I'm applauding what Prior Tier Press is doing.
Right.
I
To bring it back
don't
into
know that this can be fixed from the manufacturer's end.
No, which is partly why we spent so much time just talking to our community about it, because it needs to also come from our end.
Right.
You know, we need to hold each other accountable to what's going on. And that's why I said, if you're not the guy, but I'll guarantee you there's
But
somebody
you know
in your
the guy.
store who is the guy, who's on a regular basis, you're just as culpable for not calling him out on it as he is for doing it.
Yes.
Because he's hurting you. As much as you don't think he is, we just laid out all the ancillaries that he's taking away from you if that gaming store that you're currently playing in goes under.
Yeah. You don't think he's costing you money, you don't think he's hurting you, but I'm going to tell you, there's 150 wargamers in South Jersey that right now know that it hurt them.
Yeah.
Because a 20-year store disappeared.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of wargamers in Maryland
Right.
that know that it hurt them. Because a great location
yeah.
run by guys that have been doing this for forever
Uh-huh.
that gave discounts to firefighters, to EMTs,
Absolutely.
police officers, military.
Yep.
You know, we're willing to do things to help the community.
Yeah.
Are gone.
Yeah, and there's no impetus to. I mean, honestly, if I wanted to open a gaming store in this market, oh my God, I bet I'm probably suicidal.
You can't do it as direct. We talked about the way to
Yeah.
do business models for it, but basically the business model is much more the internet cafe.
Yeah.
So, you know, a war game. You build a wargaming cafe. You don't build a wargame store.
Because wargaming stores don't make it in this current market.
Right.
Now, can that change? Yes.
Should it change?
Should it change? Yes. But right now, it's not. And that's what, I mean, again, we're not necessarily saying that what Privateer Press is going to do is going to fix the problem, because, like him, I agree, it's not a manufacturer's only issue here.
Right.
They're just being proactive and saying, no, it does hurt us too, the less of these stores. So we're going to do what we can. But there's a flip side of that. You know,
because the problem is that most of these free sites are also brick and mortar stores.
Yeah.
They are doing ancillary sales to their own business via the web store. So, you know, so you can only penalize these guys so much. I'll give you another crazy one. Let's say for a second that I want to really try to wag the dog on this. Okay? And I'm going to right now go and register the domain 30percentoffminis.com.
Sure.
Okay?
Okay.
And I set up a brick and mortar store where I sell all my models for 30% off in the brick and mortar store.
Right.
But I have a brick and mortar store that also allows phone sales and web sales for my everyday retail price.
Right.
Can you penalize me?
Right. Now, you better be making a huge volume on that.
But you can.
Right.
Because of the website.
Right.
What you actually sell in the brick and mortar store at that point does nothing except guarantee that you have a web store.
Right. But you know what? There's a part of me that says, okay, because you built your entire business around. You have to maintain a brick and mortar store. Now, granted, there's a part of, is that brick and mortar store literally the living room in your house? Which in some communities it is.
Right.
But you're setting it up the way you want. It's a shame. But somebody could do that if they wanted to.
Well, I mean, even let's say a store the size of Cotman.
Okay.
If I have a free sites amount of web sales, which, by the way, have been estimated at varying between 6 and 7 figures worth of sales a year.
Okay. And
Okay.
are we talking about the big guys or are we talking about the smaller guys?
Oh, we're talking about the big guys.
Okay.
Okay, so you're selling 6 or 7, figures worth of
All right. So
sales a year.
we're saying
Now
close
you're
to
only keeping
minimum. Like we're saying somewhere around $1 million.
Yeah, $1 million, $2 million.
Okay.
Now you're only getting to keep 7 to 10% of that because that's your business model.
Right, but still 7 to 10% of $1 million is $70,000 a year.
Yeah.
I can live with on $70,000 a year.
Yeah. And you can keep your store open on $70,000 of profit a year.
Right.
So literally your business model becomes, I have a physical location that validates my internet presence.
Yeah. And a lot of your bigger guys do.
Yeah.
Legitimately have a storefront but all their money comes from it. And here's the thing. Part of why distributor A's always look the other way on this anyway is because you buy in such big bulk.
Yeah.
As a free site. So
Makes
there's a lot of, again, that we're not sure how that's going to get fixed. We don't know that it can be fixed. As much as Privateer Press is trying, we don't know that this fixes that problem right there.
Yep.
The only thing that fixes that problem there is you. The guy, you know who you are, who's going into a store with models you didn't buy in that store. And I'm not saying like the guy who won, look, I buy a lot of stuff online now, but you know what? I don't consider myself part of any local gaming store community yet.
Sure.
So
as a club, we buy online because we play in our club.
Because we play in our club. We're not trying to support a brick and mortar store. But I'll tell you right now, if a brick and mortar store opened up down the street within, a 10-minute driving space, I'd start buying from them.
Yep.
Why? Because they're building a community that will impact my ability to play.
Yes. They're building a community that can then help build the club.
Right. And I'm not saying I won't buy, because to guarantee they're not going to carry as many games as we play. There's that.
There's also that.
But
that's not a normal
But any
problem.
game that store carries, I'd buy from them. We're both talked to different stores that are relatively local to us about games that we play that they don't carry. And we both told them right then, our club would start buying from you tomorrow.
Yep.
If you started carrying our stuff. We believe in this. We believe that the local gaming stores have a place and need to exist. And that they're very important to our community. And so that's why we spend so much time talking about this, honestly, guys, is because while Privateer Press, you can look at it and go, there's no way this can work, or this is going to make it suck for me because I can't get my stuff free, or cheaper, and all of that might be true, but all of it's actually in your best interest if you stopped the me right now mentality and thought long term.
Yep.
And in the end, we talk about social contract a lot when we talk about playing against a person.
Always.
But every relationship you have is a social contract. Every single one, including the one with the gaming store that you play in on a regular basis. If you walk into a gaming store on a regular basis to play the game that you love, okay, and you love everybody who's there, you have entered into a social contract to do what's in the best interest of that store as well as yourself.
Correct.
And this is basic economics. Sometimes what's best for you isn't always what's best for him, and what's best for him isn't always what's best for you, but usually there's something in the middle there. And that's the thing you should shoot for.
Right.
And if you don't, you're breaking your end of the social contract. And if they don't, they're breaking their end, and you shouldn't go to that store anymore. If they refuse to do the certain amenities, and you think that you're not getting enough to make it worth you coming towards the middle, then don't go to that store. But I will guarantee you, most of your stores.
But if you're not buying from that store,
you're
don't
not coming
go to that store.
Don't go to that store either, because you're just diminishing that community. Now, here's the great thing: you may have been that guy for the last 4 years.
Yep.
And that store owner is probably hating every time you walk in that door, but he's never going to tell you that.
There's always those guys.
Right?
I'm telling you, there's always those
guys. But I'll tell you what happens. If tomorrow you walked in and you bought something, you change that narrative.
Yeah.
And you improve your own community.
And you don't even have to say anything about it. You don't have to tell them, hey, I'm sorry for taking money off your table for the last 4 years. You don't have to say, hey, these two weirdos on YouTube convinced me that I need to buy from here. You just need to go, hey, that thing that's coming out for that game that I play that you sell next month,
can you get me one?
Can you order me one? And he'll blink and he'll go, yeah. Okay, cool. And then next month it happens again.
And he'll blink a little bit, but then it'll become the new pattern, and he'll start looking forward to you walking in your door.
Yeah.
His door. And I'll tell you this other thing, you'll notice that your experience in that community will change for the better.
It's the one thing that never amazed me, that people that complain that communities become dry or communities become unattentive, they never realize it is directly correlative to the way that they approach their game stores themselves. If they approach their stores as something to support, they enjoy the games they play there more. If they view their game stores as a place to go to play with shit, that I bought somewhere else, invariably they don't value the location. Therefore, things done in that location mean less to the individual.
Absolutely. And as a perfect example, I mean, going back to when I first met you, you know, I always believed in supporting the community. I never once in that location felt like there was something there I didn't want to do or wasn't worthwhile, even if I wasn't participating in it. You know, there was, you know, we decided there was a game that we wanted to play, and maybe I didn't, you know, I wasn't it wasn't what I went for this game, but this other game's the community's trying to build it up.
Yeah.
I said, sure, drop me in, give me a 1,000-point army, and I did, and that's, you know, yeah. Granted, it's a secondary game that I you know, this was before I played 12. It was a secondary game that I didn't play often, but I always had it there to play, and I was always there with the community. And guess what? If I walked in and everyone was playing that game that wasn't the reason I primarily went to the location, I still had fun.
Yeah.
Still had a place to play, and I still got to play a game. Like, this is what happens when you think of your location as more than just a store that's trying to sell me crap. If it's, no, this is where I get to go and hang out with my friends and play games and be ridiculously, you know, childish, let's be honest here, as an adult.
I'm okay with childish.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of childish.
Childish is great. But I mean, that's what your community is. And when you don't support that, you're just hurting yourself.
Yep.
And I guarantee you, if you start tomorrow, once a month you buy something from that community, something new that's coming out, something big, you start buying from your storefront, I guarantee you your whole idea of how, you know, that community interacts with you will change.
Yep.
Because you'll become more of a pillar and more of a cohesive part of it, not just this guy who latches onto the side.
Yep. Give it a shot. 3 months. Try to support your community.
If it doesn't
for
work in
3
3
months.
If it doesn't work,
if you don't see a difference, stop.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, if everyone that watches this show, if everyone that's you know, armchairing their own communities,
yep.
If they take an active presence in supporting their local stores,
absolutely,
they will see a difference.
Absolutely. And guess what? That thing that you think your community's not doing, that you want done, when you start actually actively supporting the community, they're more likely to do it.
Yep, that too.
So anyway, I think we're going to get off our high horses here for a little bit.
Yeah, because you know, we got some time before club night, so we can still get in a game.
We can still get in, so we're going to play a game. And we look forward to you guys looking at this. Please comment. Tell us what you think. This was a different format. If you think
we're entirely off base, and
we want to hear that too,
and we're just being rhetorical dickheads, then tell us we're rhetorical dickheads.
Because here's the thing. I'll tell you this, for me and him, we like the debate. If you honestly think we're wrong, tell us why you think we're wrong, legitimately, and we'll have a conversation with you.
And if you want, I'll even go a step farther. If you're somebody that has a show or a channel or whatever, you think this is wrong,
absolutely.
Put up a show, put a link below. I'll even make sure we discuss it at least twice on other episodes we do. Mm-hmm. I have no problem with that.
And we'll give you a video response.
Yeah.
We'll create a dialogue if you want.
If you want to do a direct one-on-one on our channel or yours or both, I am down any day, any time to discuss any element of this hobby with anyone who feels, you know, this hobby has been my life for, you know, almost 30 years at this point in one stage or another.
Yep.
So it's a major component of my life. I've got a lot of history. I've got a lot of information. And I'm a numbers guy. I run numbers all the time. So I've got a lot of facts to back up my opinions. I have no problem sharing them. Anybody, bring it.
Or let's have a conversation.
Yeah.
Because maybe you're not sure, but you think we're off base and you want to talk to us about it. We'll do that too. But we want this to be a dialogue. We want people to think about what they're doing.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm Belgrath97. This is
Second Class Elitist.
We're here in LXG headquarters. Thank you for listening to us talk and ramble a little bit about this stuff. We think it was important, and we hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, guys.
Have a great day.